Nobody paid attention to the man eating noodles in the corner of the food hall. He was human, middle-aged, and completely ordinary. His name was James Riley, and in exactly 14 hours he was supposed to die. The food hall on Station Meridian 7 served over 200 species. Creatures with tentacles sat next to beings made of living crystal. Insected traders argued with gas cloud merchants, and in all this chaos one name kept appearing in every conversation: Darvik the Silent Blade. James slurped his noodles and listened. The translator chip in his ear converted the alien chatter into English, and every third sentence mentioned the Thornaki warrior. 47 fights, 47 victories. Nobody has ever touched him. Not once. His skin produces a neurotoxin. One brush of contact and you freeze like a statue. Then he takes his time finishing you. James wiped his mouth and checked his tablet. The recordings of Darvik's previous fights played on loop. The warrior was impressive. 8 ft tall, covered natural armor plates that looked like polished stone. For arms, each ending fingers that narrowed into blade-like points. He moved like water given form, flowing around every attack, never letting anyone close enough to matter. But James wasn't watching the victories. He was watching the footwork. 3 months ago, James had been running a small shipping company out of Brisbane, Australia. Nothing special. Cargo runs between Earth and the mining colonies, enough to pay his bills and keep his crew employed. Then the Thornaki merchant collective arrived with documents. They claimed his ships had damaged their cargo. The evidence looked solid. The debt they demanded would bankrupt him completely. When he couldn't pay, they offered an alternative: settle it the old way, combat on a neutral station, send a champion, or come yourself. They wanted him to come himself. They wanted Darvik to kill him legally in front of witnesses, so the debt would transfer to his company's insurance. A clean death, a profitable death. James had done his research. The evidence against him was fake. The merchant collective had manufactured everything, but proving that in Galactic Court would take years. And money, he didn't have that. So here he was eating noodles, watching fight recordings, preparing to face the most dangerous warrior in 40 systems. His communicator buzzed a message from the station's registration office. His opponent had been confirmed. Darvik of the Thornaki, undefeated champion, would meet him at Station Dawn in the arena of Resolution. James finished his noodles and headed to the industrial district. The equipment shop was run by a creature that looked like a friendly mushroom. With too many eyes, it didn't ask questions. When James purchased industrial-grade insulated gloves, the kind used for handling corrosive materials, it didn't comment. When he added boots designed for reactor maintenance work, it simply processed the payment and wished him a pleasant rotation. Back in his quarters, James modified the gear. He'd worked docks for 20 years before starting his company. He knew how to handle dangerous materials, how to protect himself from things that could kill with a touch. The Thornaki toxin was just another hazard. Chemistry didn't care about reputation. His door chimed. A visitor. James opened it to find a young Thornaki standing in the corridor. She was smaller than Darvik. Her armor plates a softer shade of green. Her translator produced a female voice. You are the human who will fight my uncle tomorrow. I am. You should run There are ships leaving the station. Every hour, you could disappear into the outer colonies, change your name, start over. James leaned against the door frame. Why would you want me to escape? Wouldn't that bring shame to your family? The young Thornacki made a sound that the translator rendered as bitter laughter. My uncle has not known peace. In 30 years, every victory traps him deeper, every fight adds to a reputation he never wanted. The merchant collective uses him like a weapon, point him at their problems, let his toxin do the rest. You want him to lose, I want him to be free, but no one can beat him. No one can even touch him. She looked at the equipment on James's table. What are those tools for? What? James smiled. For evening the odds. The young Thornacki studied him for a long moment. Her eyes had no pupils, just swirling patterns of darker green. You are not afraid? I am terrified, but I'm also prepared. There's a difference. My name is Sela. I will be watching tomorrow. Then watch carefully. Your uncle is going to learn something new. Sela left without another word. James returned to his preparations. Across the station, in a meditation chamber decorated with trophies from dozens of worlds, Darvik the Silent Blade knelt in silence. His manager, a small bird-like creature named Pell, reviewed the contract for tomorrow's fight. Standard terms. Not the human has no military record, no combat training, no augmentations. This will be over in seconds. Darvik said nothing. Are you listening? This is easy money. The merchant collective is paying triple your usual fee. Why? Hell paused. What do you mean why? Why triple the fee for an untrained human? Why request me specifically when any competent fighter could handle this? Because they want certainty. Your reputation guarantees the outcome. Darvik opened his eyes. In the reflection of his trophy wall, he looked tired, older than his years, trapped in a cycle of violence that had no end. Prepare my armor, he said. I will give them their certainty. But somewhere deep in his chest, beneath the armor and the toxin and the weight of 47 victories, a small hope flickered. Maybe this human would surprise him. Maybe this time would be different, that it wouldn't save Darvik. Nothing could save him, but it might be interesting to see someone try. The betting screens glowed like fever dreams across every wall of Station Meridian 7. Numbers scrolled, constantly updating odds, tracking wagers, measuring the precise value of a human life. Current odds. Darvik 1 call 500, the human 5001. Some aliens bet on how long James would last. The most optimistic said 30 seconds. The realistic one said 10. A few dark comedians bet on 5, that the previous record against Darvik was 12 seconds. Warrior from the Crest Dominion, 7 FT of muscle and combat training, had managed to stay conscious for 12 seconds before the toxin froze him solid. James Riley was not 7 FT of muscle. He was not trained. He was a dock worker from Brisbane who had learned to fight in parking lots and shipping yards where the rules were simple. Don't die, don't lose your cargo, and always protect your crew. He spent the morning in his quarters running through the recordings. One more time, he had watched Darvik's fight so many times that he could predict each movement before it happened. The Thornacki warrior was brilliant, fast, lethal, but he had patterns. The lower left arm always moved first when Darvik prepared to strike, a small tell, barely visible unless you watch for hours. The right Side was slightly favored, probably in old injury that never fully healed, and, most importantly, Darvik had never developed defensive techniques because he had never needed them. Nobody could touch him while a block. James pulled on his modified gloves. The industrial insulation covered his hands and forearms completely. He tested the flexibility, making fists grabbing objects, ensuring he could still move freely. The boots went on next, heavy but stable, grounded. His door chimed again. This time it was Pell, Darvik's manager. The bird-like creature hopped into the room without waiting for an invitation. Its feathers puffed with agitation. I have come to offer you a deal, Hell said. I am listening. Withdraw from the match, claim illness. The merchant collective will be angry, but they cannot force a sick combatant to fight. You will lose your company. Yes, but you will keep your life. James sat down on his bed. Why would you want me to withdraw? Your client wins, you get paid. Pell's feathers flattened. I have managed Darvik for 19 years. I have watched him destroy 47 opponents. I have seen what it does to him. Each victory takes something away. He does not sleep well anymore. He does not eat. He meditates constantly because it is the only peace he can find. Sounds like he wants to lose. He cannot lose. His family depends on his victories. His entire clan status in Thornaki society comes from his reputation. If he falls, they fall with him. James nodded slowly. So he's trapped. Win and lose himself. Lose and destroy his family. Yes, and you human are just another body he must break, another weight on his soul. I'm tired of watching him carry this burden. Withdraw. Let someone else die. In that arena, for a moment, James almost felt sorry for the little manager. Hell genuinely cared about Darvik, but sympathy wouldn't pay the bills or save his company or prove that the merchant collective had manufactured evidence against him. I appreciate the warning, James said, but I'm going to fight. Pell stared at him with tiny dark eyes. You are a fool, maybe, but I'm a fool with a plan. The manager left, muttering in a language the translator couldn't process. James returned to his preparations. Across the station, in a memorial garden filled with plants from 100 worlds, Darvik walked among the flowers. He did this before every fight. The garden reminded him of home, of the forest where he had played as a child. Before anyone knew about his gift. He hated that word. A gift was something you could give back. His toxin had manifested when he was 15, an accident. During a swimming lesson, he had brushed against another student and the boy had collapsed, paralyzed for 6 hours. The elders had tested him immediately. The results were clear. Darvik produced the most potent contact toxin ever recorded in Thornaki history. They called a blessing. They sent him to the combates. They built his reputation fight by fight, victory by victory, until the name Darvik the Silent Blade was known across 40 systems. That he had been a scholar before. He had studied ancient texts, dreamed of becoming a historian. Those dreams died in the arena, replaced by the reality of what he was: not a weapon, a tool, an untouchable killer. That the merchant collective could aim at their problems. Uncle Sela appeared on the garden path. She held a data pad in her smaller hands. You visited the human, Darvik said. It was not a question. I wanted to see what kind of creature would willingly walk into your arena. And what did you find? Sela was Quiet for a moment, he was not afraid. Not the way the others are afraid. He looked at me like he knew something I did not, like he had already solved a puzzle that I could not see. Darv turned to face his niece. What are you saying? I'm saying that maybe for the first time in 30 years, tomorrow might be interesting. The warrior said nothing, but something shifted in his chest. That small hope, the one he tried to bury, grew slightly stronger. Tomorrow would come soon enough, and for better or worse, the human would be waiting. Silence is wait. Most people never notice it, but in a crowd of 10,000 beings, when every single one stops talking at the same moment, the silence becomes heavy enough to crush stone. Arena of Resolution was built to hold 20,000 spectators. Today it was packed beyond capacity. Creatures hung from the rafters, squeezed into a maintenance corridors, pressed against viewing screens in every corridor of the station. Everyone wanted to see the human die. The arena floor was a perfect circle 100 meters across, made of polished composite material that had been designed to resist blood, acid, and fire. Hovering cameras captured every angle. Translators broadcast commentary in 900 languages. Darvik entered from the eastern gate. The crowd erupted. Cheers, screams, the clicking and buzzing and howling of 100 different species celebrating their champion. Darvik walked slowly, his four arms held loose at his sides, his armor plates gleaming under the harsh arena lights. He looked like death given form. Beautiful, terrible, inevitable. James entered from the western gate. The cheering faded into confused murmurs. Few beings laughed. Someone shouted something that the translator rendered as dead man walking. James ignored all of it. He walked to the center of the arena, his heavy boots thurring against the floor, his insulated gloves flexing. As he rolled his shoulders, the referee was a floating sphere of blue energy, an artificial intelligence that could process combat at speeds no biological creature could match. It positioned itself between the two fighters. Combatants confirmed. Darvik of the Thornaki, James Riley of Earth. Standard rules apply. Combat ends when one participant is unable to continue or surrenders. Medical teams are standing by. Are both parties ready? Darvik nodded. James nodded. Begin. Darvik moved first. He was faster than anything that size had a right to be. His forearms spread wide, creating a web of blade-tipped fingers that could cut and poison simultaneously. His footwork was elegant, each step flowing into the next, closing the distance. Heartbeats. James did not watch the arms, he watched the feet. When Darvik lunged, James was already moving. He stepped to the side, grabbed one of Darvik's arms through his insulated glove, and used the warrior's own momentum against him. Darvik hit the ground with a crash that echoed through the silent arena. Nobody breathed. Nobody moved. The untouchable champion was lying on the floor, staring up at the ceiling, trying to understand what had just happened. James stepped back and waited. Darvik rose slowly, his eyes locked onto the human with new intensity. This was no longer a simple execution. This was something else entirely. The warrior attacked again. Faster this time, more focused. He used all four arms in a coordinated assault, creating a cage of blades that should have trapped any opponent. James dropped low, his legs swept out, caught Darvik behind the knee, and the champion crashed down for the second time. The crowd silence transformed into something Salt confusion, the beginning of fear. If the untouchable could be touched, what did that mean for the natural order of things? How? Darvik demanded as he rose again. James didn't answer. He simply waited, his stance relaxed, his breathing steady. Third attack. Darvik tried technique from his earliest training, something unpredictable, something he hadn't used in decades. A feint with the upper arms, followed by a strike from the lower pair. James read it anyway. He redirected the strike, stepped into Darvik's guard, and threw him with a hip technique that sent the warrior sliding across the floor 3 drops, 3 times. The untouchable had been touched. The arena was so quiet that James could hear his own heartbeat. Darvik stood more slowly this time. His armor plates had scraped against the floor, leaving marks in the composite material. He was not injured. His pride, however, was bleeding openly. You are not fighting, Darvik said. Neither are you, James replied. You're performing. There's a difference. Fourth attack. Darvik abandoned elegance. He charged like a beast, all 8 blades aimed at the human center mass. There was no technique here, just rage and desperation, and the need to prove that the natural order still held. James caught 2 of the arms, twisted, and used Darvik's momentum to slam him into the arena wall. The impact cracked the reinforced material. The champion slid to the floor, dazed. You telegraph everything with your lower left arm, James said, his voice calm. You favor your right side, and you've never had to develop defense because no one could touch you until now. Darvik looked up at the human standing over him. This close, he could see the details he had missed before, the scars on a human's knuckles, the calm focus in his eyes, the way he stood, perfectly balanced, ready for anything. What are you? Darvik asked. I'm a dock worker. I've been handling dangerous cargo for 20 years. Your toxin is just another hazard. Chemistry doesn't care about reputation. Fifth attack. Darvik pushed himself up and charged one final time, putting everything into a single desperate assault. James met him in the center of the arena. He caught Darvik's leading arm, pivoted, and executed throw so clean and powerful that the champion crashed down hard enough to crack the arena floor. Darvik did not get up immediately. He lay there, breathing hard, staring at the lights above. 5 times the human had dropped him, and the real fight hadn't even started yet. Get up, James said quietly, so only Darvik could hear. We need to talk. And for the first time in 30 years, Darvik felt something other than the weight of his reputation. That he felt hope. 20,000 beings watched a legend die. Not physically. Darvik was still breathing, still capable of fighting, still dangerous, but the myth of his invincibility lay shattered on the cracked arena floor. The betting screens went dark. The algorithms could not process what was happening. Every prediction, every calculation, every certainty had been wrong. Darvik rose slowly for the 6th time. His armor plates were scuffed. His pride was broken, but something new was growing in its place, something that felt almost like relief. You said we need to talk, he said. James glanced at the hovering cameras, the thousands of eyes watching from the stands, the merchant collective's viewing box high above the arena floor. Not here, not with words. Watch my hands. He raised his gloved hands slowly and began making gestures, simple movements, a universal sign. Language that most space-faring species learned for situations where translators failed. I'm not your enemy, Darvik's eyes widened slightly. He responded in kind, his blade-tipped fingers forming shapes. Then why are you here? The merchant collective manufactured the debt. They created false evidence to destroy my company. They brought me here to die legally, using your reputation as the murder weapon. The warrior went still, his forearms dropped to his sides. The crowd murmured, confused by the pause in combat. You have proof in my quarters on a data chip. Everything I found during 3 months of investigation. They've been running insurance fraud across 6 systems. My company was just the latest target. Why? Tell me this. Why not bring it to the authorities? James lowered his hands. Because galactic courts move slowly. It would take years to build a case. In the meantime, I'd be dead. You would be another tool they used and discarded. But if the truth comes out here in front of 20,000 witnesses, in the middle of the fight they arranged, their entire scheme falls apart. Darvik turned to look at the merchant collective viewing box. The 3 Thornaki traders sat in luxurious chairs surrounded by servants and guards. They had paid triple his usual fee. They had insisted on him. Specifically, they had wanted certainty. They used me, he said quietly. They've been using you for years. Every time they needed someone eliminated, they found a way to put you in the arena. Your reputation became their weapon. Your honor became their shield. The referee's sphere floated closer. Combatants, the pauses exceeded standard limits. Please resume or declare a winner. James looked at the sphere. I need more time. Unacceptable. Resume combat or forfeit. Darvik stepped forward, his voice carried across the silent arena, amplified by his translator. I invoke the right of testimony. The crowd erupted in confused chatter. The right of testimony was an ancient Thornaki tradition, rarely used in modern times. It allowed a warrior to speak truth during combat, to air grievances that could not be addressed through other means. Testimony accepted. The referee said, speak. Darvik turned to face the merchant collective's box. I have been your weapon for 19 years. You told me it was honor. You told me it was duty. You told me my family status depended on my victories, but you never told me the truth. He gestured to James. This human was supposed to die today. Not because he owed you money, because he discovered your crimes. You manufactured evidence. You destroyed his company. You brought him here to silence him, using my hands to do the killing. The lead merchant stood up in his box. This is absurd. The warrior has been manipulated by the human. Do not listen to these lies. Then explain why you paid triple my fee. Darvik said, explain why. You insisted on me specifically. Explain why a simple debt collection required the most lethal warrior in 40 systems. The arena fell silent again. All eyes moved between the warrior and the merchant. James spoke next, his voice calm and clear. I have evidence. Financial records, communication logs. Everything is on a data chip that has been broadcasting to station security since the moment this fight began. If I die, the evidence still reaches the authorities. If I live, I testify in person. Either way, the truth comes out. The lead merchant's face contorted with rage. He signaled to his guards, kill them both now. But before the guards could move, station security drones flooded the arena. Dozens of floating Weapons platforms surrounded the merchant's box, their targeting systems. Locked on attention, a mechanical voice announced the merchant collective. Leadership is under arrest for fraud, conspiracy and attempted murder. Please remain still. Resistance will be met with appropriate force. The crowd exploded, cheers, screams, the chaos of 10,000 beings reacting to the impossible. The untouchable warrior and the ordinary human had not just fought each other, they had exposed a conspiracy that had been running for years. Darvik turned to James. You planned this from the beginning. I hoped. Planning implies more control than I actually had. You dropped me 5 times. I needed time to explain. Fighting was the only conversation you would understand. The warrior made a sound that the translator rendered as laughter. You are either the bravest human I have ever met or the most insane. James shrugged. Probably both. High above in the viewing box, the merchant collective was being led away. In restraints, Sela stood at the edge of the arena, watching her uncle with tears in her eyes. For the first time in 30 years, Darvik stood in the arena without the weight of his reputation crushing him. He was free. The detention center on Station Meridian 7 had been built to hold the worst criminals in the sector, murderers, terrorists, beings who had committed crimes so terrible that no single world would claim jurisdiction. The merchant collectives leadership now occupied cells designed for far more dangerous occupants. 3 weeks had passed since the arena, 3 weeks of investigations, testimonies, and legal proceedings that moved faster than anyone expected. The evidence James had gathered was overwhelming. The merchant collective had been running their fraud scheme for decades, using warriors like Darvik to eliminate anyone who got too close to the truth. James sat in a witness room, finishing his latest statement. The investigator across from him was a crystalline being that pulsed with soft light when it spoke. Your testimony has been recorded. The preliminary hearing is scheduled for tomorrow. The prosecution believes the case is strong enough for full trial. How long will that take? Galactic courts are thorough, months, perhaps years, but the important thing is that the truth is now public. The merchant collectives assets have been frozen. Their victims are being identified and compensated. James nodded. His company's insurance had already paid out. His debts were cleared. His crew would receive back wages with interest. By every practical measure he had witnessed. Oh, why did he feel so empty? He left the witness room and walked through the stations corridors. The crowds parted around him. Now everyone recognized the human who had dropped the untouchable champion 5 times. Some stared with curiosity, others with respect, a few with something that looked almost like feared. He found Darvik in a meditation garden, standing among the alien flowers. The warrior looked different now, smaller somehow, not physically but in the way he carried himself. The weight was gone. They're saying I should return to the arena, Darvik said without turning around. My reputation has grown. The warrior who faced the truth, the champion who chose honor over victory. I can make more money now than ever before, but you won't. No. Darvik finally turned. His eyes had changed too. They looked younger despite the lines of age on his face. I was a scholar before they discovered my gift. I studied ancient texts. I dreamed of understanding history, not making it. And now I have a second chance. Sela has been helping me reconnect with the academic community. There is a university on my home world that has offered me a position teaching research the life I should have lived. James smiled. That sounds peaceful. It sounds terrifying. I have not used my mind for anything but combat strategy in 30 years. What if I have forgotten how? To think you haven't, trust me, you processed everything I told you in the arena faster than anyone I've ever met. Your brain still works fine, you just need to point it in a different direction. Darvok was quiet for a moment, then he reached into a pouch at his side and withdrew a small object. It was a blade, curved and elegant, made from the same material as his armor plates. This was my first trophy taken from a warrior who almost defeated me in my third fight. I have carried it for 27 years as a reminder that I could be beaten. He offered it to James. Now I give it to you as a reminder that I was beaten and that it was the best thing that ever happened to me. James took the blade carefully. I'll keep it safe. I know you will. They stood together in the garden, two beings from different worlds connected by violence that had somehow become something else entirely. Sela found them there an hour later. She carried a data pad filled with documents. The preliminary findings are in, she said. The merchant collective scheme affected over 200 victims across 12 systems. The courts are establishing a compensation fund. Several other warriors have come forward with similar stories. They were all used the same way, pointed at problems and told to eliminate them. Darvik's jaw tightened. How many? At least 30 confirmed. More are being investigated. 30 warriors, 30 weapons, 30 beings whose honor have been twisted into murder. I want to help them, Darvik said. These warriors, they will be lost when they learn the truth. They will need guidance, someone who understand what they are going through. Sela nodded. I was hoping you would say that. I have been drafting a proposal for a rehabilitation program, counseling, education, job placement, way for these warriors to rebuild their lives without the arena. James looked between uncle and niece. You two have been busy. We have learned from you. Sela said, you did not come here just to survive. You came here to expose the truth, to help others. That is the human way. Yes, James thought about it. He had come here to save his company, to clear his debts, to avoid dying in an arena far from home. But somewhere along the way the mission had changed. I guess it is, he said. At least it should be. His communicator buzz. Message from the transport office. His ship back to Earth space was scheduled to leave in 6 hours. Duty looked at the message, then at the two Thornakis standing before him. Then he closed the message without responding. I might stay a bit longer, he said. Seems like you could use some help with that rehabilitation program. Darvik made the sound that meant laughter. Can you teach warriors to handle cargo? I can teach anyone to handle anything. That's what dock workers do. Sela's eyes brightened. Then welcome to the team, James Riley of Earth. And for the first time since arriving on Station Meridian 7, James felt like he was exactly where he was supposed to be. 6 months can change everything or nothing at all. It depends on how you measure time. The rehabilitation center occupied an entire level of Station Meridian 7. It had therapy rooms, training facilities, and dormitories for warriors who had nowhere else to go. The walls were painted in Soft colors that psychological studies. Said promoted healing, the staff. Included counselors from 15 different species, and at the heart of it all stood James Riley teaching a 7-new insected warrior how to move cargo containers without crushing them. Gentle James said, "You're not attacking it, you're guiding it." Warrior, whose name translated roughly as clicking thunder, made a frustrated sound. His mandibles clicked in rapid patterns. "This is humiliating. I have defeated 300 opponents in combat. I cannot be defeated by a metal box. Box isn't trying to defeat you. That's the whole point. Not everything is a fight." Clicking thunder paused, his compound eyes focused on the container with new intensity. Then slowly, carefully, he lifted it and set it down on the designated platform without a single scratch. "Good," James said. "Now do it 50 more times until it feels natural." Across the facility, Darvik sat in a classroom surrounded by former warriors. He held a tablet displaying ancient Thornaki texts, leading a discussion about history and philosophy. His students listened with the same intensity they had once applied to combat training. Sela watched from the doorway. She had become the center's administrator, managing schedules, coordinating with courts, and ensuring that every warrior who came through their doors had a real chance at a new life. "He looks happy," James said, appearing beside her. "He is, for the first time since I can remember." She turned to face him. "The final hearing concluded this morning. The merchant collective's leadership has been sentenced lifetime imprisonment. Their assets have been distributed to victims." James nodded. "Justice served more than justice. The case set a precedent. 3 other systems have launched investigations into similar schemes. The way warriors are used and exploited is finally being examined." Through the window, they could see the transport docks. Ships came and went constantly, carrying beings to every corner of the galaxy. One of those ships could have carried James home months ago. "You never left," Silas said. "No, why not?" James was quiet for a moment. He watched Darvik explain something to his students, saw the light in the old warrior's eyes, remembered the broken creature he had faced in the arena, because leaving would have been easy, and sometimes the right thing is harder than fighting. His communicator buzzed, a message from Earth. His old shipping company, now run by his former crew, was doing well. They had expanded into 3 new systems. They wanted him to come back to take his rightful place as owner, but he read the message twice, then put the communicator away. "Bad news?" Sela asked. "Good news. Actually, my people are thriving without me." "That makes you sad." "It makes me proud. It means I taught them well." Darvik finished his lesson and joined them at the doorway. His students filed out, chatting in low voices about concepts that had nothing to do with violence. "The university has accepted my application," Darvik said. "I will begin teaching next semester ancient history and cultural studies." James smiled. "Professor Darvik has a nice ring to it. It feels strange, good, strange, like wearing new armor that actually fits." Pal appeared around a corner, his feathers puffed with excitement. Small manager had reinvented himself, too, becoming the center's outreach coordinator. He was good at convincing broken warriors to give the program chance. "We have a new arrival," announced a Crystari from the fighting pits of Next 9. "She says she wants to learn another way." Darvik straightened I will speak with her, we all will. James said that's how this works. They walked together through the center passing rooms where former killers learn, meditation where warriors train for, construction jobs where beings who had known only violence discovered that peace was possible to ache the entrance. A crystalline being waited, she was covered in cracks, old wounds that had healed badly. Her light pulsed with fear and hope in equal measure. I heard about this place, she said. They say a human dropped the untouchable champion 5 times. They say the champion found peace. Darvik stepped forward. The stories are true. Can you help me find peace too? James looked at Darvik, the warrior who had once been a weapon, the scholar who had been trapped in violence, the teacher who had finally found his purpose. We can try, James said. That's all anyone can do, but trying is enough. The crystalline warrior entered the center, another lost soul, another chance at redemption, another being who might find a new path behind them. Through the large windows, the stars stretched into infinity. Somewhere out there, James' old life waited. His company, his crew, his world, but his new life was here, building something that mattered, helping people who had no one else. Darvik put a hand on his shoulder, even through the old insulated gloves that James still wore. The gesture felt warm. Thank you, the warrior said. For what? For dropping me 5 times, for showing me that being touch was not the end, it was the beginning. James looked at a strain family, the former champion, the determined niece, the anxious manager, the broken warriors learning to be whole. It was my pleasure, he said, and he meant